Hi, this is Mr. Langley. Welcome to the ACT writing test overview of expectations. We've been preparing ourselves for argumentative writing, and we are going to look at the ACT writing style to see what the rubric looks like, because if we know what the rubric looks like, we know what they expect, then we're better able to write for the ACT. With that said, first thing we need to do is take a look at that rubric, and you're going to notice that the rubric is a 6-point holistic rubric. A couple things we need to break down when we look at that. First up, 6-point. When you get your ACT writing score, it's actually out of 12 points. That means 2 judges take a look at it, and then they combine their scores. Your score is the best you're going to get out of 12 points. The other part is the holistic part. Okay, now take a look at that. That means that you have to meet the requirements of each of the lower levels in order to achieve the score you're trying to get. In other words, you have to achieve all the scores, all the requirements of score 1 in the score 2 box to get a score of a 2. Score 2 is everything in the box 2 and score 1. Everything all the way down. If you want a score of a 6, you have to meet everything that's in the requirements for a 6, as well as everything that's in the requirements for a 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If you're missing anything along the line, then it goes down to the level that you met the most requirements of, plus everything else below it. So that'll make sense as we go through the examples. Alright, as we look at each of those scores individually, they don't do a really good job of explaining each of these levels, so I kind of try to break it down and do the best I can to help you understand what each of them means. First up, to get a score of a 6, let's take a look at it. It's your highest score you can get. That means that, first of all, you have to answer the prompt. You're actually on topic, you understand the task, you understand the prompt, and you're doing a good job of going through and answering that prompt. Next thing, it's really important that you take a side. Okay, take a position on the issue is what it says here. Next, you have to make sure that you address the opposing side. Now that's what they mean by the counter argument. Okay, the counter argument is the opposing side. We have to look at what either the opposing side says and prove that my side is more correct, or I have to possibly play a little devil's advocate, address what the opposing side may consider my weaknesses to be, and disprove those as weaknesses. So as long as we look at that, the opposing side, what they might consider, and bring up support to show that I am more right, I am more correct, then I have addressed the counter argument. Okay, it's very important. Okay, that's one part of it. The next part is support. Support we've been working on extensively. We have to have specific examples. We have to have clear examples all the way through. It's really a key point to get a 6. The next thing they look at is organization. Notice that they say that the organization must be clear. We do have some argumentative writing patterns that we're going to address, and those are based on what we looked at with the last lesson. They're going to be based on claim, support, and warrant. So we'll look at those later. The next big area that we have to look at, transitions. A lot of times in writing we kind of gloss over the transitions. The transitions in the level of 6 need to be integrated into the essay. They cannot be the simple first, next, then. We have to really put some thought into them. They like to see those transitions that are comprised of adverb clauses and things like that. So we'll get some practice with those as well. Next up, your introduction and conclusion need to be very well developed. They need to be good. Okay, so we have to make sure we pay attention to those. In most cases, it's a good idea to do an outline beforehand, very quickly, briefly on the side. That way we can start off with a good introduction and move into the body and then have a good conclusion. The next area that they look at has to do with word choice, or what we call diction. Okay, so make sure that you're paying attention to the diction, and you're also paying attention to style. Those are also very key. And notice down here, little to no errors to distract the reader. Now, when we look at a 5, let's try to identify, it kind of drags off a little bit from a 6. So let's try to identify what's going on here. In this side, we do still take a position. The counter argument is still addressed. Support is good, obviously not as solid as it was for a 6. The organization is clear, it's predictable, but it's still not as tight as it was for a 6. Notice that in this case our transitions kind of start to drop off. So we have simple, obvious transitions. So watch those. Also notice it says that the introduction and conclusion are still well developed. Diction is okay and style is okay. We still have some grammar errors in there that pop up, but they don't take away from the meaning. Okay, when we get down to the 4, we still have to take a position. Notice in the counterargument, there is some response to the counterargument, so the counterargument is still addressed. That's important. Maybe not as much detail as a 5, but it's still addressed. Support is okay. Organization is still there, but it's predictable. Notice it still says the transitions are simple or obvious. The intro and conclusion are there. Notice it's clear, somewhat developed. The diction is simple, so we've kind of let it go a little bit. Maybe we're repeating some words, or our style is not as good as it needs to be. Errors do exist in grammar, but we can still get the meaning out of it. Now, we drop to a 3. That's where we start to see some major differences. You're still taking a position, but notice that the counterargument is briefly mentioned, so we barely look at the opposing side. We don't really go anywhere with it. The ideas that we use to prove our point might be just limited, or maybe we repeat the same idea over and over. Focus is there on topic, but maybe we stray from the prompt. So the general topic, notice, is there, but maybe we stray a little bit from what the prompt is asking us. Organization says it's simple. Maybe it's a little confusing. The introduction and conclusion are kind of just there. Notice it says they are underdeveloped. The diction is very basic, and we have grammar errors that start to kind of confuse us or start to impede the understanding. Now we drop down to a 2. This is where it says that we maybe don't take a position. We kind of waffle back and forth between two different sides. Or we take a position, but we just plain don't support that position. Also notice that there's little to no counterargument. Okay? So if you don't have a counterargument, the best you're going to get is a 2. Okay? Examples are there, but they're really weak, or they're not really proving your point. Your transitions, again, are simple. Notice it often says they might be inappropriate or misleading. Your introduction and conclusion are there, but they're not very good. Diction is simple, and we do have errors, and the errors really confuse us. Down to the 1. Basics, without beating around the bush, your essay is junk. Notice also as you skim through this one, it says that the intro or conclusion are missing. Either the introduction or conclusion is missing. The best you're going to get if you don't have time to write a conclusion is a 1. Keep that in mind. Notice also the score for a 0. If you're off topic or they cannot read your writing, you're going to get a 0. Okay. On the example anchors sets, this is an example prompt. Notice that most of the prompts that they have are going to be based on education. They want you to have a topic that you can use Pleasant Plains High School for examples. Things that are going on in your high school, the way we do things, our rules, our systems, stuff that you can actually relate to. Use it for specific examples in your essay. That way you don't have to worry about support. You have the support, your life in Pleasant Plains High School. Okay, now I want you guys for homework to go through, and I want you to look at the PowerPoint that's on Mr. Langley's digital classroom that goes with this show. It's on the presentations page. And take a look at each of these examples, the models for each score level. Okay, so we've got the 1, obviously there's not a whole lot to it. Kind of check through and see what's going on there. 2, 3, notice there's not a lot of difference in length between the 3 and the 4. It's quality. Okay, so they do look for the support. They do look for the counter argument. They look for all those things. 5, same thing. Try to discern what the difference is between each one. Okay, I want you to look at these models. I want you to be prepared to determine how each one is a 5, a 6, a 4, or whatever it may be. Okay, and be prepared to talk about how each fits that score. Our next step is to discuss those organizational patterns for argumentative writing, and then we'll get some practice in actually doing some of that writing.